This is Distance from Center. I'm John Horton.
Trent.
Trent, good to see you, man. We had a little technical kerfuffle last week, so we're going to pick up where we left off. And we're going to talk about the Malibu Open.
Yes. Yes. All right.
So
like, with this year's schedule, apart from Masters, this is the premier domestic event, and again, this year it got unfortunately moved from Wisconsin. They still couldn't get that permit to place our athletes in water deemed unsafe by the county, blah, blah, blah. But, guys like Chad Scott and Tommy Harrington and Kobles, and I mean, those guys just rally, and they took the hand they were dealt, and they put it back onto Trophy Lakes, which has a lot of history, a lot of pro events, a lot of world records, and no. It's it's not ideal. These athletes want to be in an urban setting where there's a potential bigger draw for spectators. But again, like the Malibu Open delivered. The on-water stuff was absolutely incredible, and not just these astronomical scores, but the level of competition was crazy.
Right. Well, so you're talking about, I'm just going to jump right into it here. You're talking about people who stood up and got the work done. Adam Caldwell is actually running the site now, and jumping right into the men's slalom. Not only did he work his butt off, like making the whole tournament, he's the on-site guy. He goes off the dock and runs, is it 1.5? One and a half at 41. First guy off the dock, and first skier. First skier off the dock. It kind of like had to rattle everybody. Like, holy crap! What if Adam had gotten some sleep the night before?
Yeah, incredible. It really did get the ball rolling. And I know I've been at events like that where, the first skier was only the first skier because maybe they hadn't been skiing that much, and that's not a score that is necessarily particularly surprising from him, but it's particularly surprising at the Malibu Open when he is the first competitor of the day. So I mean, it really set the tone for what was to come in that opening round. I think the qualifying score, it still ended up being right around that 4.5 at 39 mark to get through into the semifinals. So that put Caldwell, lumped him into the top 8 of that 16 or thereabouts anyway.
Right, for sure. And the other name that I just want to throw out there, that if you're in the know, you know these guys, but if you're not, the average public is unaware of Cale Verdict. I keep touting him as the greatest skier in the world that nobody's ever heard of. And he went off the dock and ran 3 at 41.
Yes. So he's definitely. So I have a good, quickly, to digress a little bit. I have a pretty good Cale story that speaks to that. It was way back when, my very last collegiate nationals. We were defending champions, the University of Louisiana. And I went out. Yeah, that is where it's located. And I went out and I skied reasonably well. It was a little bit windy, a little bit glary. That aside, I weathered a whole bunch of storms. That by the time the last 2 skiers were to hit the water, I already knew I was ahead of Ian Trapp. I was ahead of Thomas DeGasperi, ahead of Will Asher, ahead of like a big field of skiers. And I'm looking at my last collegiate nationals ever, thinking, holy shit, I just won collegiate nationals. Like, what a sweet way to end, because the only guy left is Cale Verdict, some Midwestern kid, not really important. And so that was my introduction to Cale, was to watch him be I think he might have been the last skier of the week. No, that wouldn't have been. That's not accurate. He would have been in the final group of the day, though, and to watch him do what Cale does and half buoyed me and took his first title, took his first collegiate title in his first nationals ever. So he's been around. He's been running 3 or 41 forever. But yeah, I mean, he's a full-time pharmacist, full-time dad, but an amazing skier. But you're right, his name isn't on the top of everyone's list of who they thought was going to run 3 or 41 in that opening round.
Right, and I've only met him a couple of times, but I want to say an astoundingly nice guy. I mean, just you take him into your house in a heartbeat, or hand your children off to him. Really like Cale. So glad to see that. Back to the task at hand. So it actually took 2 at 41 to get through, actually. Looking at the results. And that brings us to the...
top 16 now. Nah.
No, top 8. Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. You're right.
Anyway.
Gone. All right, so that brings us to the top seeds. This is your department. You go.
I mean, the whole thing played out. The only one surprise was, as it started getting whittled down from round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, where they kept having the field. The surprise was Freddie Winter was left out of that third round. He started strong. Third round, or second round, I guess he fell around 1 ball 41. Or crashed on his way to 2 ball 41, so he was left out. The big one for me, as this thing went along, right from the opening round, was Stephen Neveu. Again, so now his name is obviously on people's minds in the last couple of years. He had his first win in California a couple of years ago. He won the Herbst Cup a couple weeks ago, which is, while it's an invited, smaller field, it's a field of many of the most progressive skiers in the world. So he backed up his win at Herbst Cup with he went on a tear at Malibu Open. After the first round, he was square in the lead with 3 at 41, or top seed, with 3 at 41, headed into the next round. Then another 3 at 41 in the following round, put him in second seed going into the third round. In the third round, another 2 at 41, which left him in a 3-way tie to make that final 2 head-to-head bracket. He was tied with Will Asher and Adam Settlemeyer. Just not only were his scores amazing, his level of confidence and the ease at which he was sending it through 39 round after round was as good as I've ever seen him. So then that took us to, after the runoff for that last spot to meet Nate in the head-to-head final, the 2-man final. It was Will Asher that emerged, and I know you watched that final pairing. What was your takeaway?
Nate's he's on another planet, right? I mean, we all kind of say it, but Asher, Asher is probably the most interesting skier in the world to watch, I think. That's it. Unfortunately, it's the battle for second, right, behind Nate, but Asher's fantastic.
Yeah, of course. He's the greatest. In my opinion, he's the best athlete in the history of our sport. Just what he can do on his ski, what he can do off of his ski, on a bike, in the gym. He's jumped over 200 feet. He's tricked probably 8,500 points. This guy is the real deal, and he did all that stuff by the time he was 17. So no one's ever been more athletic atop their ski, and Nate's approach is just super, super refined. When I watch him, it's just my takeaway is his sense of timing is just incredibly good, and that kid's got ice water in his veins, because little mistakes won't let him change his timing. He never gets ahead of himself. He never gets ahead of the rope. So when it matters, he's obviously the hardest guy to beat, probably in the history of our sport. So the final was exactly as we could have hoped it. To watch Will versus Nate in a head-to-head final is that's a dream matchup for sure.
Right. For sure. And going back to Freddie Winter. Yeah, he had one bad round. I think it's the first really significantly bad round he's had in, 18 months. Is he really? Yeah. Everybody's got to screw up every once in a while.
Yeah, and we'll be really careful. We'll be careful to point out that his one bad round was 1 at 41. So, it wasn't
right.
It wasn't enough that day, but that's a decent bad round for sure.
Right, and speaking of Neveu, it wasn't that many years ago that I met him for the first time, and he was this freakishly tall, skinny kid that nobody ever heard of, who'd only been skiing for a couple of years, and he was already running in a 41. So, yeah. He's come a long ways very, very fast.
Yep.
All right, the ladies, and sticking with my theme of being all about the somewhat underdogs, both Jamie Bull and Samantha Damala Amazing, amazing, amazing. I watched their early rounds and just super impressed with both of them as skiers I'd heard of, whose scores have come up, but both of them showed really technical aplomb. Both of them getting, a couple 39 in the first round and, not making it through into the final. But, these girls are the future of slalom skiing.
Yeah, women's slalom was really exciting this year. In that the cut just to get out of the first round took a score into 39, and for as long as I've been doing this, and that just has never ever been the case. The men's cut was kind of typical, that 4.5 to 39. Like you had a little room for error, and you'd still be able to get through. But for a women's first round cut, which was only a 50% cut, they had to be into 39. So I mean that's pretty sweet. I mean that's progression on another level, even just in the last 12, 18 months. It's really sweet that this whole group of the next skiers, the Sam Dumal is already really close to being there, and you go Paige Reaney, Jamie Bull, girls like Bailey Austin, Allie Nicholson. These are all like these next group of up-and-comers, and they all have 39 off scores.
And let us not forget Brooke Baldwin, who did not have a great tournament, but she, in my opinion, might be the most technical female skier in the world.
Yes, I neglected her only because I already put her in that next group. She's not in the top tier. She's not in my mind. She's not in the up-and-coming. She's somewhere hovering in the middle between podium finishing and not. But yeah, I mean, we're not lacking talent in women's slalom, obviously on the top end or on who we're going to be watching for the next 10 years. So when it came down to it, it was going to be kind of, again, like what some people would probably consider a dream matchup for that head-to-head final. It was Regina and Manon.
Right, and Manon's been on a tear this year. I think she had one bad event this year that I think we covered a couple episodes ago, but she's just been on fire, either on top of the podium or second all year long. Yep. I think she's been on top more, kind of fighting against Regina, which, Regina to me is the female equivalent of Nate. Beating Regina is real victory, right? That's got to be the big goal. And Minot's been on top, so Regina's back on top. Home event, she's a Malibu athlete, so it's got to be a big deal for her. Yeah.
And then, the missing from that top two pairing, and I guess finishing up in third was Whitney, McClintock, Reaney, but I know that she was just coming off of a back injury, and she skied, probably by her standards, okay, not great, bunch of mid-39s all weekend. So I think she's back rehabbing, trying to get ready for a possible appearance at the Pan Am Championships coming up in November. But yeah, both men and women's slalom delivered, more, greater than you could have hoped for sure.
All right. So that brings us to just last weekend, which was Big Dog at Laku in just outside of Denver. It was actually where we had Western Regionals this year. Beautiful site, a little susceptible to wind. I can tell you that my personal opening pass at Regionals this year was the single windiest pass I've ever run in my life. And it was actually really fun. My score was low, but I got off the water laughing. So beautiful site. I mentioned the wind because for the Big Dog, I understand they had great conditions all weekend except for one section in the middle. I understand Mark Shaw particularly got a bit of a hurricane. But so with that aside, by all accounts, it was a very, very good event. 38 off was run 66 times, and 39s was run 12 times, which is not outrageous, but kind of what you would expect from a Big Dog event.
Yeah, and, I didn't see it, wasn't there, but there was it was cool. Like there was some classic guys in the field that I'm always stoked to see. Like I know Todd Riccicelli was up there, and Seth Stischer was up there, who I believe he finished up fourth on the weekend, which I would assume it's as good as he's ever place in a big dog event. I know Todd Johnson made the head-to-head bracket after the first round, so it was cool. There was like a lot of the classic dudes that you love to watch compete. So I'm sure it was a great event.
Right, and in the semi, in the bracket of 4, kind of not surprising, but kind of an unusual matchup was Jeff Rogers and Greg Badal. And you'd think that Jeff is almost unbeatable, and Greg took Jeff down. Greg ran 5 in that bracket, and Jeff ran 4 at 39. So you kind of expect both these guys to run 39 every time.
Dang,
But,
I mean, Badal's obviously a machine, so that's a win that I know from from experience in other regards that you take a chance for him to beat, but a chance for Badal to beat Riders, that's like something he's going to put in his pocket, and like that'll like fuel him through some big matchups in the future, because he's Rogers is another guy, if you're going to say like ice water in his veins, like the guy's unflappable because
oh my god,
he just doesn't get rattled by this stuff. He's done so much and he's won so many different events on different levels that for anyone to beat Rogers in that arena is that's absolutely a victory.
All right. The other matchup in the final 4 was Stisher and Scott Larson. Stisher ran 3.5 at 39. Larson ran the pass, and that actually kind of sets up the drama for the finals. Is the Rogers Badal pairing happened first, and then Stisher and Larson went off the dock. Larson runs 39 again, which I think he was pretty freaking stoked with. Came back to the dock and immediately had to go back out against Badal. And I actually talked to Scott about this, and apparently he could have probably stalled a little bit and caught his breath, but just didn't have the wherewithal to request that or to kind of push for that. So they went right back out, and Greg went out and ran 5 at 39, and Larson ran 1.5 at 39, probably just physically exhausted. Larson's
Cool.
a fantastic skier and a good guy.
He is.
So
Yeah.
So Badal takes the win. Larson takes the second. All in all, by all accounts, a really successful, good event.
Cool. Yeah, that's obviously going to be a nice segue into the finals that are coming up pretty soon, I think.
Yeah, the Michigan. It's got to be in the next couple of weeks because it's before the California Pro-Am and the ball spray cash prize. So again, big dog finals in Michigan in a week or two, and then up in Sacramento, Belle Aqua Lake 2, I believe, we've got the California Pro-Am, Greg Badal's event, and then the weekend
Awesome.
after that, one lake over, we've got the ball spray cash prize, my event, and then for all my purposes, the season's pretty much over. I crawl up in a little ball and cry for a couple of days.
Awesome.
What else you got cracking next couple of weeks?
That's it. Just a few local tournaments. People skiing hard down here. It's still 102 degrees every day. And this season actually is going to extend pretty long because we have the Pan Ams, which aren't until mid-November, right? And then from there, then there's going to be the Senior Worlds in late November. So we're going to have stuff to cover all the way through. We're going to barely catch our breath before Moomba.
Awesome. All right, man. Well, that's all I have for this week. Oh, yeah.
No, we'll cover that later. Yep. No, we'll cover that later. It's too early.
Okay, good. All right, well, thank you folks for watching, and we'll be back in a week or so.
And also water, not beer. Not beer.
What?
Okay?
Why? What?
I said water, not beer, just so everyone knows.
Why not? Oh.
Because it's only noon here.